You know, when you're looking for a knife, when you're ready to buy a knife and you're thinking, where do I start? I think the most important thing to think about when you're thinking about knives is you want a knife that's going to inspire you. You want to find a knife that when you're sitting at your desk at work, you're thinking about your knife. Like, what am I going to cook when I get home? What am I going to do? How, like, you want the knife to be calling you. So it makes your days working in the kitchen very exciting and something to look forward to. That's the whole point of a good knife. After that, you want to have a knife that, feels good in your hand. And that usually comes down to the kind of handle. When we think about it, there's kind of two types of handles. We have got what we call Western handles that have got a big piece of steel here, big piece of steel through the center, and rivets in the handle. They're very heavy and an indestructible handle, right? Some would say it's over-engineered. Basically, with this kind of handle, the balance is right in the middle port where the handle and the blade meet. With a Japanese handle, it's something very different. It's a much lighter handle. It's usually like an unfinished but polished piece of wood. And the steel in it is just a little bit of tang from the knife that goes into the handle. So it's a small piece of steel. So overall it's lighter, and also it doesn't balance here, it balances further forward. The Japanese knife makers I know think that since the blade is the part doing the cutting, the blade should be sharper. I know the European knife makers like to make it indestructible. So figure out what you like. This is a heavier knife. This is a lighter knife. It's personal preference, and I'll tell you what, I have knives from both camps in my collection. It's a personal thing. If everybody liked the same thing, we'd sell that one knife. The other thing you want to think about is the steel the knife is made out of. If we take the steel and put it into two camps, very basically, we have stainless steel. Stainless steel is great because it won't rust, right? It stains less. Carbon steel is great because it'll stay sharp longer and it's easier to keep it sharp. Now, the one downside of carbon steel is that it can rust, but people put up with it because it stays sharp longer and we can make it sharper and it's easier to keep it sharp, generally. So if you don't want your carbon steel knife to rust, don't leave it wet. Don't use it, just use it, wash it, dry it. Sometimes I tell people wash it in really hot water and dry it twice before you put it away. Because it's when you put it away wet, it'll get rusty, or if you just leave it. If you're the kind of guy that cuts a bunch of lemons for a cocktail and leaves the knife there and then comes and cleans it in the next morning, then you're gonna have rust on your knife. Get a stainless steel knife. If it's your first one, get a stainless steel. It's way easier. One of the ways around this, the Japanese knife makers have been changing how they make knives, where they take a stainless steel core, but then they a carbon steel core, but then they wrap stainless around it. So you'll see it in knives like this one right here. And if you can see, right along the edge there, that steel's getting dark. That is the carbon steel sticking out from the stainless steel. Think about that like the bologna sticking out from the two pieces of bread in a bologna sandwich. That steel there is carbon steel. It'll eventually turn very dark. It could rust. But as you see, it's just a little bit along the edge, so it's a lot easier to take care of this kind of knife than a blade that's all carbon steel. If the whole blade's carbon steel, it's a lot more maintenance issues to think about. Another thing we like to look at or think about when we're looking at knives is how does it look? Because that plays a big part of it, right? Guitar players never buy a guitar that doesn't look cool also, right? So we've got a lot of different finishes. It's how to make the knife look good. So this finish here is called migaki, and it's very standard. This is the kind of finish you see, well, on many, many, many knives, right? But then the Japanese have got lots of other finishes to make the knife sexy. This here is a knife from Takeda-san, and you can see the blade is black. Now this blade is black because this black color is what the steel looks like when it comes out of forging. So that, he's just left it on there. He hasn't polished it off like a shiny knife is. We've got knives like this that are black, but also have some texture on them. So this is like a secondary hammering. They call this tsuchime, which means hammered. So this one, Here's another example of tsuchimi pattern where you can see that they've manipulated the knife. After they've hammered it, they've manipulated it to give it a cool look. This knife here, this finish is called nashiji, and it looks like an Asian pear, right? It's got that, because nashi is an Asian pear or apple pear, and ji means the skin. So it looks like the skin of that. So that's why they call that nashiji. You know, and then you can have what the people always, everybody associates with samurai swords and with Japanese knives is Damascus steel, sometimes called suminagashi. And these are knives that are designed to look reminiscent of old swords where they've got all the layers of folded steel. So what you're seeing there is layers of folded steel. This is a blacksmith showing off, and showing off he is. He's killing it here. These are both from Masashi-san. He loves to make things that are really pretty. So I'd say if you can come to a store to choose your knife, come to a store that has a lot of brands, come to a store that lets you cut food with it, and come to a store where the people have a lot of knowledge about the knives, right? Like Knifewear, for example. If you can't come to the store and feel the knives, the next best thing is to go online, look at the pictures, find the knives that you think look interesting, do some research, figure out, do I want stainless or carbon steel? You know, find some knives that look cool. And then what you can always do is send us a message on the website. Send us like a question. We can do videos with you, anything like that. And we can help you find the right knife for you. But like I said, the one you want is the one that's really going to get you inspired to cook. I've bought a lot of knives simply because they looked cool. And that's okay too. The great thing about Knifewear is we don't buy any bad knives. So all the knives we buy, they're from blacksmiths or knife makers we know. We've vetted all of them. They make sound blades, and we only buy knives that we love. So that's how you build a knife. Pick a cool one, pick one you like, that's easy.